All right, now we're recording. So for a few weeks, we're going to talk about shells, and we're going to focus on the Linux shell. I would like to look at PowerShell also for Windows, but if you understand the Linux shell, learning PowerShell becomes easier. I'm not too sure that that translates the other way around. If you learn PowerShell, I think that Bash can still just confuse the dickens out of you. So, Henry, you're nodding your head up and down. Do you think that's a fair assessment? So I think,
I think that is.
Yeah, well, PowerShell is an object-oriented shell, meaning that I might as well demo this bit. Let me, so this is PowerShell. And so if I say dir, right, I get a listing of files and directories, right? This is a really boring directory. So I've got a couple files. Let me see. If I say I just want to see the files, -file is a parameter for that. I get these. And so I've got an empty demo.txt and a tld.txt. Those are the only two normal files that don't start with dot, but it doesn't really matter. So if I say I want to see tld.txt, I can pipe that in PowerShell to a I never spelled this out, these are called commandlets. I can pipe it to one called get member, and it will tell me what are the attributes of the thing that I just got out. It doesn't show me the name, it doesn't show me the output. It takes the output and sends it to this other commandlet, piping just like in Unix. And you can see that this thing called tld.txt isn't just a bunch of text. It's actually a .NET object that's of the class system.io.fileinfo. And if you look up the documentation for this .NET object online, you'll see that it has all of these attributes. PowerShell adds a few. Those are these note properties that just make it easier to work with. Probably these script properties also. And but all the ones that say method and property, if you just look up the .NET object class system.io.fileinfo online, that's where you'll see these, copy to, create a symbolic length. Those are right from .NET. So all that to say, when you see what was it called, tld.txt, and you see this output, all that's happening is that you're not telling PowerShell to do anything with that object. And so it has this default behavior of formatting itself in this manner and displaying itself. If I say, when I said just dir, I'm not doing anything with any of these objects. And so they all display. And if I do get member on, the entire output, you'd think I just get one thing, but there's actually two kinds of objects in there. And dir is a shortcut for another commandlet called get child item. So in this directory where I am, I'm getting all the child items. And you can see it's actually that commandlet is mashing together directory info objects and file info objects, and it's putting them together in one default behavior, which is to display them with that type of display. So the point is that under the hood, PowerShell does some interesting things, but it lets you do some kind of simple things like with dir. I'm not going to do something complicated here. That's okay. With dir, each of these files, has properties like we just saw. So if I want to get, instead of seeing all this stuff, right? Suppose I just want the name. Then I can do something like this. And just get that out because they're objects. Okay. There's another way to do this. Maybe I would be getting corrected if I was on Stack Exchange. Oh, don't use aliases. So there's also a select object is the full. You can just say select, but as long as I'm being an exemplar here, I better do this the long. I do it the correct way in scripts, but when I'm interacting with it, I use the shortcuts, right? But I'll do it the long way here. So you can say select object. I find it interesting that they put an alias in for star because select star is a SQL thing where you get all the columns. So if you say select star, oh my gosh, you get everything out, and it can't format them wide because there's too much stuff. But if you say select star, you can say name, which, oh, that's just shortcut too. You can say these are the properties I want, and I want the name property, and it'll just show them all to you. I forgot to say I only wanted to see files. So this will be like the previous output, right? And you can say you want multiple properties. So there's a directory, right? So there's a lot of things there that will make sense to you as a programmer. And after you see Bash, you'll look at this. And I think for 70% of what you do, you'll feel like PowerShell fits Windows kind of like a glove. And the reason for that is that it's a wrapper around the Win32 API. Okay.
There's a reason.
Yeah.
It was made.
It's a shell for the, well, there's also a PowerShell core, which is platform agnostic, but it's still a wrapper around a useful API. Bash, however, is not. So let's go back here. Well, equal time, right? Equal representation. In Bash, if you were able to ask the question, we'll do this. Whoa! Let's not look at the hidden things. Right? If you remember, the A and LS means all, so it showed me all the hidden stuff. If you were able to run the PowerShell commandlet get member to know what each of these lines were, it would be string. If you were going to run word count and you get out this and you ask what that line that says 1085,497 is, the answer would be string. Almost everything you do in Bash, the answer is going to be string. Now, it might do some interesting things under the hood, like you can have arrays in Bash, but when you show them on the screen, the answer is string. Pipe it to another command. Typically, you're piping a string. I'm not sure about arrays. Under the hood, they might. So there may be some exceptions to that. But basically, the answer is, what kind of output do you get from a Bash command? String, 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 probably string. I think that's a string, 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 string. Number. You get numbers like return codes or numbers, but the point is you're not getting a file, a file object or a directory object or anything like that. Even if you run the thing that gives you all the information. Well, I'm in that same directory. That's weird. If you run the thing, this stat gives you all the metadata information for a file object, or I should say an inode for any object in the file system. These are strings, right? They're all strings. And so strings are important in Bash. How's that for an understatement? Being able to manipulate strings, that's important in Bash. So that's kind of where I'm coming from, that if we learn Bash, we get really good at manipulating strings. And there's something else I want to get to also. So we've got two pretty different shells here. But I will say that Bash, in a way, fits Linux like a glove. I think the glove sometimes feels like it has 6 fingers on a 7-fingered hand, but we'll get there. So if I asked you what is a shell, what would you say right now? I'll take nominations and I'll write them down.
A API essentially funnel point for the operating system.
API funnel point.
I don't know if that's right.
No, that's okay. We're just capturing ideas. Next, Michael. Part of the point here is that it's hard to, so just say what you think.
It is something that allows you to interface with an operating system at a more I can't think of the word.
Put in a blank.
uh,
At a lower level. All right. Dan.
I'm gonna go with an overlay. An overlay of the operating system.
Well, that's a mispronunciation.
Could I also add that it's a thing that you put lettuce and cheese along with salsa?
Whoops. Mean lettuce and cheese
With salsa.
in along with salsa. It's funny because my spell check won't even catch that. Okay. Michael. I can say Michael without pronouncing it.
Or you can say Henry.
you already put.
Henry. No, I thought I was done with that. You're like the easiest.
She's gonna make me go again.
Shane, we have identical twins that used to work at GoDaddy, Denise and Diane. You'll see the problem right now when I tell you that Diane's the one that still works with us. Denise and Diane. And I've called Diane Denise, but I have trouble with names. In about a month, they'll be done cold. I once accused him of being his son.
Yeah.
You were out of the room. I said something about where your dad, blah, 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 blah. He's like, my dad's not here. So names are Henry, I'm sorry. Yeah.
You way of correcting the operating system.
All right.
By the way, do you happen to like the Oxford comma?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did I skip it? No, I left.
No,
I
you-
did
you
it.
put it in.
I do. I think that there's some ambiguity without it.
Okay.
But Grammarly sometimes insists that I get rid of it. And when I'm writing documentation, I sometimes go with most of what Grammarly says, but more often I rewrite the sentence so that Grammarly likes it and I like it.
So this, I think in this room, this only applies to Krista, but the SAT and ACT do not use the Oxford comma.
Mm.
So if you see the Oxford comma in those tests, that's the wrong answer.
That's interesting. I'm surprised they consider a style sheet item an incorrect and incorrect answer. Back when I took those tests, they didn't have anything that ambiguous. So, okay. Well, let's ask. I didn't do this before. Hey, Bart. It's Chris. Okay.
No. Oh, no.
At I was gonna say college freshman, but then it would start throwing in all sorts of comp size. I bet. At a high school senior level. And we'll give it more words than we took. except we will say. I forgot the question mark. Can't go back. Software interface that acts as a bridge between a user and the core of an operating system. It enables users to control and interact with the system by interpreting commands entered in a text-based or graphical environment. I don't know if you know this, but you know, I'm losing the GNU-based shell. That's a graphical shell. What's it called? GNOME and KDE they're graphical shells, right? Windows is a graphical shell. Not what I'm talking about either, so I'm not going to dock anybody for points, right? But technically those are shells. Think of it as a command center of your computer, allowing you to manage files, launch programs, and configure system settings. So we'll put that in BARD. And you know, fair. I'm really hoping that ChatGPT comes off stupid, because it's always fun when one of them does. And I'll go with the we'll go with the creative one. Oh, I need to go back and get my prompt. You have to use the same prompt or it's no fun. Well, I can't use exactly the same prompt, can I? Oh, really? He's going to look stuff up. I love this. Hello, Chris. I'm glad you asked about that. He's always so interactive. Well, this is the creative personality. Well, that's a problem. Oh my gosh, here's a picture of one. It's X. But this is the X operating system. Whoops. And oh, they never showed the picture. Weird. It's not the easiest thing to interact with compared to other options. So an operating system shows a program that allows you to communicate with the operating system, use its services. You can type commands or click icons to tell the operating system what to do, such as creating, deleting, moving files, running other programs, changing settings. The shell is the outermost layer of the operating system because it's the part you see and interact with. Different operating systems have different types of shells, such as command line shells and graphical shells. This is a useful definition, actually, for right. Just because it's black doesn't mean it's the one I'm on. Oh, we have a link. No, no, stop. Would like to, that's okay. I'll leave it there. So one thing that's nice about this ChatGPT paragraph, and it's not part of the shell definition, you know, they riff a little, the chat bots, and BARD doesn't riff as much. Probably if we ask the ChatGPT, the one on the right that says, I'll just try to give you a correct answer, it wouldn't have done this, but, and might as well just throw it over there. But the creative mode, which I use a lot to get past things like writer's block. The creative one tends to riff and try to give you examples and things like this. No, they did the same thing. Okay. Is that it gives us examples of the things you can do. And that is this part. Right. Creating, deleting, moving files. So there's file operations, interacting with programs, changing settings. Those are just examples, right? But that'll lead into next thing I want to talk about. So yeah, shells can be graphical or CLI. So command line or whatever, common term for that is CLI, command line interface. And the next thing I really want to talk about is what are shells used for? And
Wizardry.
we'll give a numbered list this time just to be inconsistent. No, I can't do it. Wizardry. You want your names on this? Michael. God! At least I noticed that time. What is it? So there's a mental block. If I think of you, I don't have any trouble except in this room, and I don't know why. There's a mental block here at play. I will fix that. Once I identify mental blocks, they die.
Providing a barrier between the meat and cheese and salsa and your hand.
And is still hungry.
Confusing young children.
And talking about tacos. I'm sorry, I didn't get the specifics. So.
My daughter once asked what religion is Taco Tuesday.
The best
See,
one.
it's alliteration for the people that follow alliteration. Alliteration. So I'll say, I'll cheat and go to Chat GPT. File management. Who wants to take another one from what Chat GPT already told us? Michael?
Confusing young children.
I think you can do better.
Launching.
Files. Dare we say program? Let's go like programs and scripts.
Launching programs and scripts to confuse children.
But thinks I'm writing programs like that. That's Dan. And Michael is confused by shells because he thinks he's a young child. Is that where you're going?
Sure. Or
Confusing young children. Is that right?
yes.
Okay, we're good now. Sorry, I riff sometimes like ChatGPT, but they'd have to fire me because they tell ChatGPT not to be insulting. Tristan, you second, Dan.
Second, the first.
Yeah. So what else? Managing files. Yeah, let's just look. I mean, it says right up there. Yep. Go ahead. Good. Okay.
So here's a question for you.
Ah,
In defining a shell, are we defining what all shells have? Or what the shells can have? Because when you said customizing, I was thinking back to like way back in the day, like Windows 3.1, you know,
Yeah.
and you were doing everything through DOS shell and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I admit I was an Apple guy at the time, but I don't remember a lot of customization options and that sort of
no, just what shells can do. yeah.
what they can do.
Yeah. What different shells can, yeah. We can go with what's implemented in various shells as opposed to what an ideal shell could do. Spot supernova, something like that. No. So we can, I don't know if there's any subclasses for wizardry. Let me know if there are. Necromancing. Or did you say necromancing or necromancy?
Necromancy.
Just those Skyrim. You'll all find out.
Well, yeah. So file management.
Reading files back from the church.
Yeah.
How to unrash.
So we got CRUD, which is you should create read, thank you, update and delete. And so yeah, what, and then I guess there's undelete and untrash. Access control, right? Permissions. Go with that. Launching files. These could be, and I'll get rid of this because just down here. Scripts. Interpret scripts. No. Launch interpreters to run scripts, compiled programs, and I'm forgetting stuff, I'm sure. Managing and customizing an OS. I don't know. Not really sure what to put in there. Well, oh no, you can so services, right? And adding and removing services.
So
Updating. You said packages. Where do we set like OS parameters and just properties? They're all over the place in Windows and they're all over the place in Linux, but this still probably be OS. OS is going to be a big one, right? I was going to say interrogating, use that word, and it sounds scary. Viewing log files, and then launching files probably have debugging up here, I suppose. But anyway, all this stuff can happen through this shell.
It's one of the things that's primarily used for. So if you have a process that you're commonly doing, and I'm using process loosely, that has multiple steps, it'll combine that so it'll be more intuitive.
Nice. Yeah.
So I'm really trying to get at the intuitive part. So it's trying to make all of this management more intuitive. That's where I'm really going.
Here. Oops. That's a big piece actually, because you can have, I'm not going to start with what you said because I have this little list in my head. There's something called, I'll maybe come up with a better word for this, but orchestration is using a service that is able to read a configuration file. We call it config as code, where you write a file that says, this is how I want the thing to look. I don't care how you do it, just make it look like that. So you say, you know, I want these 3 users to exist in Active Directory. They should have these permissions and be members of these groups. Please make it that way, and you don't have to code it.
I think that should be in the wizard.
Yeah, I like that. Necromancy and orchestration. Wow, that's what I get for using a graphical editor for. Well, I'll fix that later in the actual markdown editor. So pipelining, scheduling. But so all those things can abstract. But I don't know if I'm getting quite at what you're saying. I mean, they let you take after you build the thing, it becomes intuitive. But I don't know if, I don't think I have what you were getting at.
Yeah, I mean,
What's an example like in Windows of doing this, is if there is one, or Matt?
Well, I mean, to a certain degree, the job management and pipeline, all of that does get to it because it makes that the more intuitive that I want this process done, go do it, rather than me going through a bunch of rather esoteric steps. So if we're going under wizardry, you know, all you have to do is, I want that guy dead. You don't actually have to wave your wand and say accelerate this or whatever.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we'll expand the idea of wizardry to include aliases, being able to make simple names for hard names.
Sure. Okay.
And functions, which is basically extending what the shell can do. That sounds kind of wizardry-ish.
Sure.
And if we're gonna actually, programmers are generally considered wizards, right?
Yeah.
So wizardry and programming, we'll just leave it as wizardry. Scripting and programming, I'll put them both there. Scripting is definitely tied to the shell. Programming comes to the shell when you're gonna run a compiled program. This is pretty good. So I'm gonna pop over to the junk list I made here. These are like use cases, file types, interacting with processes, interacting with services, interacting with your inner child, games. OG games, overpowered cows, and a big snake. Some of you know all about that. But you know what super cow powers? It's a thing in the apt group of commands. There are super cow powers, and eventually you run into a really big snake. Just saying, Easter egg. It's an Easter egg. So we got this, I think, in
mix, everything is fine, included but not limited to files.
yes. So these are my notes from last night. I finally got to a place where I got the thing I've been working on forever is working. And so that happened in like early in the evening last night. So then I took a break, and Margie and I watched something on TV. You'll understand just how drained I was. I don't remember what we watched on TV. I was kind of checked out. And then later I sat down and made this list like in one pass, things we could talk about. So this is about Bash, and I'll kind of mix our notes and these notes and put that out. And then I'll make some homework kind of off of it. It'd be kind of a shell scavenger hunt if it goes well, like this command can do X. And this is why TLDR will be helpful. But so will the man pages. And so will the internet. I use Google and Bing more than anything if I get stuck on Bash. But to do that, I think you have to get to a level of being at least somewhat familiar with using Bash. Because the answers you find are typically mostly like what you're trying to do, and you have to be able to adapt them a little bit, right? So the name Bash, I don't know if you guys knew this, but there was this guy named Bourne. I don't know his first name. I don't think it was Jason. And
Jason Bourne, holy crap, guys.
yeah, and GNU stands for something. Help. It's Unix, probably. No, it might be recursive, like GNU is not Unix. I don't know.
Well, I remember that Bash came out as a board again show. Bash was actually not bad.
Hey, that's what I said. But I was guessing, and I think that search engine actually knows. So it's called GNU's, not Unix. The problem was that the Unix operating systems were proprietary. And so when Linux was being built, they couldn't use any of those shells, right? So yeah, they made a born again shell, which is kind of funny. And I think in this room and on this team, you know, everybody understands that there's a time for a graphical interface. There's a time for not a graphical interface. You can script a graphical interface, but why? We do it at work sometimes, but that's because we're making graphical products for people to use. But to do it, you know, if we test our own services, we don't need a lot of infrastructure to do that. Like Python, for example, has its own testing libraries that we can download and just use those. But to test graphical products like web pages, we have to use third-party products like something called Selenium. I don't think we still use Selenium, but the point is you have to buy fancy stuff, right? I don't think I brought. Wait, there it is. I think there should be two.
Wait, isn't Benadryl Albumet? Isn't Benadryl Albumet? It's the way you're keeping my
When I cough like this, it's yeah.
because they
Yeah. Yeah, I don't. And Benadryl's okay for me. Some people it makes tired, and some people it makes really hyper. But yeah. Okay. So we're going to talk about CLI shells mostly. We'll see enough graphical shells along the way. At competition, it's good not to have a graphical shell because that increases your your surface area on your OS. And that means there's more to attack. In the past, when teams really wanted an OS or a graphical shell, we've let them do it. Sometimes when they were kind of in between and they wanted the OS shell to set things up, we've let them do it and had them consider removing it before the competition, right? But the problem with that is that if they are at a level where they need the shell to set up and then they have to do something during the competition, they might need it then, right? So, but if we can set things up without GNOME or KDE, then we just got less to attack, right? And if it's Windows, there's actually a thing called Windows Server Core that has very little Windowsy stuff in it. In fact, let me show you. Just launched Notepad, looking at all these other apps and saying, where is it? Notepad automatically saved. Oh, look, it's somebody else's SQL. Maybe it's mine. So when you say file open or save as or whatever in Windows, you get this dialog. This is for open. And you've probably noticed that this is the same dialog that shows up everywhere when you say file open, right? This is a common dialog. Windows provides it. And in Windows Core Server, their goal was not to provide any code that wasn't needed to configure a server. You don't need that, right? And so they're like, we're not gonna include the common dialogues. You don't need them. And all the administrators that, you know, they were like, we need Notepad, you know. I want to install Notepad++ or something like that, but I can't save files. And so the team compromised and included the common dialogues so that people could have a text editor and save a file, as opposed to them being creative and finding a text editor that had its own save dialogue. So yeah, it's stripped down that far that including the common, you know, file save and open dialogues was a compromise on, you know, in the team's view. So that's, when we get to Windows, I don't think we've ever had somebody do that, but that's, that's a possibility, depending on what the scenario is. So we've looked before at, what kinds of things can we actually see with the operating system? We can see, oh wait, did I skip past the, actually kind of want to go this first, interacting with file. And I've mentioned that in Linux, everything is a file. I don't know if I've said it this year, but now I have. So I want to kind of look at that. And you know what, it'll be more interesting if I do it in an actual instance. So I'm going to start, because I'm not connected to Iowa State. This might be faster, we'll see. You can connect to Iowa State if you want to follow along, but I'll start something in VirtualBox here. Hey, it's Palo. Remember Palo from last year? How could you forget Palo? We did all sorts of crud on Palo. "56 seconds remaining." Done. Okay. So, oh, this won't work here. There we go. So this is Palo. Palo, that's Henry. His name is Henry. And you've never met before. So everything's a file in Linux. And I'm not sure how much we even talked about this last year. I'm gonna go all root here, if I can remember this password. Is it this one? It is. Okay. So everything's a file in Linux. There's some directories we don't poke around at very much out here in the root. Maybe I should pipe that through lolcat to make it all more visible. But so bin has software in it. So does lib and lib64 and lib32, libx32 and sbin. They all have software in them. Lots of software, lots of files. But there are other things going on here. Like, is there anything mounted in here right now? Oops. Wait. Oh, I said LS mount. I thought I said CD mount. That's why I was confused. But there's nothing in here, unfortunately. And I don't know if I have anything to mount, but if you mount a let's see what is mounted. I should say, where are things mounted? And ever since we got these snaps, all sorts of junk is mounted. Can I just ask where? This might be dangerous. If I say this, will it just show me where it is? There we go. Dev SDA3. So if I go into the dev directory, and if I say I want to see the thing called SDA3, that is the root disk. It's a file called SDA3. You'll notice over here, huh?
It's a file. So root is a file that exists in /dev.
This is, you know how Windows has device drivers? Think of this as the equivalent of a device driver, but in Linux, it's a file. And the type of file matters a lot. You know, over here on the very left where it says B, we're used to seeing, it's either nothing or a dash for a regular file. I can't remember which, because whoever pays attention. D for directories, right? And there's other ones. This is B, it's a block device. When disks store data in blocks, right? And so underneath it, when you create a directory entry, which is called an inode, on the root device, the thing you're interacting through under the hood is this file, SDA3, because everything in Linux is a file. There should be another, let me see, is it called? Yeah. So there's more than one way to get at some of these files. Since they're files, you know, it can make multiple of them. And just make sure they interact right in the software. So there's a whole tree of other ways to get at these files. says by ID, by partition, part label, part UUID, partition label, and partition. UUID is a universally unique identifier. It's there's a command for it. Yeah. Oh, what is it? Why did it autocomplete for me? Oh, UUID gen. So it's these things, right? And the guarantee is supposed to be that if you just keep running UUID gen until the heat death of the universe, you're never supposed to get another one that's the same. Yeah. We're pretty confident about dating the heat death of the universe, I guess. But if you look at, so we're in the dev disk directory. And if you look at by-id, you can see that, let's look at it like this. You can see that these are references to other ways to identify your disk. But oh my gosh, look, one of them points back out to SDA3. So these are different ways to link to these same device files. Is one of them going to, oh, by path. And this is, if you know the device information, and which one's SDA3, right there, there's a couple of them, but it's on PCI 0, and then this is the PCI path, because that's intuitive. That also points to SDA3, and because PCI paths are intuitive, there's another one. But the point is that there are device files here that the operating system understands that this thing is mapped to physical hardware. That's what the mount command does, right? It takes, when you mount, you're saying, I'm taking, and the way this mount command was done, it was done to say that dev SDA3, it used that mapping to map that to the directory entry /. And I know that because it could have been any of them, but when I ask mount to mount the root, it tells me you can't do that. It's already mounted. And it gave me the device file. Now, if you look here, there's a lot of stuff in here. So you can see, here's a file for the CD-ROM. There's a file for the CPU. And look, it's a directory. What happens if we go in there? There's 2 CDs. Remember, I must have added, remember when I made Palo? Neither do I. I was thinking for a second I was at Iowa State, but I must have given it 2 CPUs. So let's go into CPU 0. So my CPUs are a directory structure. And, oh, it's not gonna, this is not what I expected. So this is, well, I don't know what this is, MSR. Wonder what happens if I try to tail it. That's not happening. I'm not going to try to pipe anything to it, because I think that's a bad idea. I'm root. Yeah, but I want to keep going with this demo. This one is a C, this is a character file. So you can, a lot of times you can stream to it. Let me see, what is, yeah, right. So what is TTY? TTYs are also character files. So these are things you can stream to and something happens, who knows what. FIFOs are probably, FIFOs might be implemented that way. What's that?
I have a timer going.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You saw me look. Yeah.
Yep.
He readjusted like time? No. So in fact, if I look at my own stuff here, you see I'm on PTS1. Okay, so that's a character device. What do you think will happen if I do this? Eve. Tristan, what will happen? Wow. And here you are, the most active imagination. Sent it to my screen because my screen is PTS1. PTS1 is my screen, however you want to look at it. This is why I didn't want to write anything to that CPU file. I don't know what it is, but it's a character device and it's in my CPU directory. And I don't know what the 3 letters stand for. But yeah, PTS1 is, in fact, I know somebody at college who, in college, very few people knew this stuff. And a friend of mine did know this stuff, and he was reading on a device and he saw that a friend of his was also on the device, and he echoed to his terminal, Mike, this is God. Please give all of your money to Lon. And Mike was a little surprised. So yeah, everything's a file. So that's interesting. So that's in dev. I'm gonna ls the, oh, I'm not there yet. I'm gonna ls the wide way, see if there's anything else that looks interesting. We've said that standard in, standard error, and standard out are files, right? We talk about redirecting this file, 0, 1, 2, whatever. And then input, anything else looks, what's that? Log, right there. Yeah, what's that one? Oh, it's a link to run systemd general dev log. So it's D log CPU. Anyway, so that ought to whet your appetite for the dev directory, which I don't think we talked about last year hardly at all. Let's see what else is out there. What do you think proc stands for? Oh, you guys are good. You ever poked around in the proc directory? Sure. Oh, sure is the correct answer. So there's cool stuff out here. What's the one? File system? Like this one, file systems. I use this sometimes. Why is it length 0? I don't believe that. But let's see. So there's a file systems. Yeah, and it's some virtual kind of thing. These are the different file systems I can mount on this computer. If it's not on this list, I can't mount it. So is NTFS on here? I have a script that actually sorts this in a readable way, but since that script's not here, nope, it's not. So if I couldn't like put a USB drive that was created by Windows with NTFS on here, let this VM see it and have it make any sense out of it without installing the NTFS drivers. So that's something that's in, why is that in proc? Because that's where it is found. It's kind of, I don't know why they put it there. What? Oh, they got VFAT. I see that. That's the only one. Hey, I'm just the messenger. So in Bash, hey, that didn't.
That pretty much going out of.
Yeah, well, they still use it a lot for like portable drives.
So
Yeah. It's just one of the most commonly known like file systems for a portable USB stick. Kind of like if you're running a reset stick and you plug it in, boot off of that, and then it'll reboot. I'll run it.
Old stuff tends to be portable, right?
Okay.
Dollar variable, not Henry. Too easy for him. What does dollar return? Michael Tristan. Henry. Oh. Yeah. So my process is 41939. I wouldn't actually have to know that. I could just do this, right? Because it returns the current PID. So there's a directory for my process. How cool is that? No. There's my command line. which is, hang on. How can I make that a little more obvious? This is my command line, -bash. That's what started this session. Yeah. There, let's see. My CPU set, what? Yep. My current directory is here. So when I run pwd, let's just show you, pwd might be something that just says, show the value of proc /$/cwd, right? Oh, that was easy.
So they update that link every single time you change directions. Folders, kind of like CD then must also change that link as well.
Well, I put it this way, is that the thing that CD does is probably update this link. And everything else just looks at it, I would guess. That's just a guess. How about this environ thing? What do you think's in there? Color term. Wow, what are they separated by? Well, I'm seeing color term. I don't see semicolons. The color, this is part of the color variable or whatever it is. So I'm thinking they might be, they're a --0 or something. There's a, nope. I think they might be separated by null string, which is hex 0. And I just don't remember the format for how to separate them out that way. Hey, that's what I tried, -0. Of course, I remembered the, I wonder if I can do this. Oh, that's me.
Oh, hey. Actually,
Oh, it's that. Hey. Okay, this is interesting. Control @ oh, this doesn't work here. There's a way to quote characters literally in. Oh, here. I haven't given up quite yet. This is one of these things just not worth the time I'm putting into it, is it? There isn't a line 2. Okay. 1. Oh, I think I know what I did wrong.
oh, the pseudo UI. But it stores the group of the
Oh, it didn't work. Cedar. And that doesn't work in the shell. Anyway, it's not anywhere near as big though as what you get if you say env up here. Or is it? No, actually they no. Let's try that again. No, actually that's all you get. So it's close. I think it's, oh, this might be because I'm root. Root probably doesn't set a lot of, set gets you functions and stuff as well. So, okay. Anyway, there's a lot of things out here. What else is interesting out here? It's more interesting if you're not root, I suppose. Timers, what'd you CPU, which one? CPU set, maybe.
Oh, no, it's you post and right, it's not your. Maybe it's a.
Anyway, oh, and your process ID is probably here, which is maybe it's not this. Poke around in it. There's more than I'm finding for you. How about status? I think that's a little bit. Yeah. So status has a bunch of stuff in it. So as UMask has to do with if you create a file, what permissions is it going to have? And it's frustratingly, it's the opposite of this. I think it'll be like 775 or 7755 or 0755 or something. 0755. Well, if I let's see, if I touch a file in my own touch that and I say an A.text comes out. Oh, weird. It comes out 744. So yeah, I need to read up on UMask. It's important. I can never remember how it works. So anyway, you get information here. VM size information. I think there should be memory information. There's your PID, in case you didn't know you were in that directory.
Actually, what's the PID?
Parent PID.
Oh.
And you can get that out of PS also. Although, does it show it? No, you have to say PS-F for full or wide listing, and then it'll show you the parent PIDs. So anyway, yeah, everything's a file. What else is in everything? But I mean, I guess we'll just kind of, I'm going to ask you to take my word for it. And so the fact that everything's a file is the reason why I'm saying that the 6-fingered glove on the 7-fingered hand is, everything's a file. So all these commands that manipulate text in the shell, there you go. To quote my big fat Greek wedding, start with CPU, put a file in front of it, link to it, it's text, there you go, right?
I don't remember that in my big fat Greek wedding
at
all.
They would say every word had a Greek.
That's right.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Computer, means with, puter is potato, you put potato, comes from Mr. Potato Head, designed by computer, there you go. So everything's text, everything's a file rather. And so that's why when you hear Linux people say that they hate the verbosity of PowerShell, and they hate that you have to sift through all, why can't it just be text? And the PowerShell people are like, why the do I have to work with all these text commands? They grew up with different pedigrees, right? And you see people that use both shells make really amusing mistakes, right? I try to use grep a lot when I'm in PowerShell. Of course, when I'm in a text editor, you'll see me type :WQ or JJJJJ to try to move the cursor around because I think I'm in Vim. But we still have something. You've got 15 minutes. You said 12:45 or 11:45 or 12, which is it somewhere in there? So yeah, there are files that represent files, directories, the config metadata, some of that, like we saw some of the metadata inside the proc directory. Also, when I ran stat and we got back all that metadata about the folder or the file, that's stored someplace in the file system. But the file system is mounted as a file, and I'm not exactly sure where that is stored, but I suspect you could find it in a file someplace. Keyboards and terminals, I was clever enough to put keyboards on here twice. But I showed you my terminal. I can echo to it as root and it shows up on my screen. I have a feeling that there'd be some way to put, I wonder how you'd put stuff to input. That might be protected.
Well, so, would you theoretically, if you do the TPY that somebody else was on via a SSH session, couldn't you just echo like hello world to their team?
Yeah,
And then
I think so. Yeah, I think that's what Lon did to Mike. Other devices. Yeah, and I didn't find, there might be a command to list the different file types. One of them would be to type into Google, what are the Linux file types? It's a finite set. It's not, I don't think it's extensible. I don't think you can create your own file type, but without compiling your own Linux. And then I started listing things out. You can find these commands you can use to find files by name. Find is actually more flexible, and it has predictable output. Somehow you can get ls to tell you, there's a stat to tell you that it doesn't have output you should rely on in a script. I can't remember how you do that, but
you can always just redirect the standard error into /dev/null and then only care about the actual output.
Yeah, I mean the format may change across different platforms and things like that. But with find, let's see again where I am, or what do I have here? Anything in documents? Oh, well, that's no good. Anything in, I'll probably have something in downloads. Not much. Who are these people? Let's go here. This looks more promising. Okay, so I've got a few repos, right? One of them is C Leonard GoDaddy. Yeah, okay. So I can say here that I want to find, starting at this location, recursively, files. And I want, iname means case insensitive name. And for iname and -name, I can use wildcards, or maybe just for iname. I use iname all the time. And I can say, I want to find if I have any workflow files, and I should have changed directories to Git, but I want to see if I have any workflow files. And I know they live in a folder that's called something about workflow, and I don't remember the capitalization. And I can do that. And it's like, oh, look, I do. And actually, I'm looking for a folder. Remember, I just said that. So I wanted to see directories, right? And so I can see all of these, right? Workflows. So now I know the name is workflows. And now I see also that it's inside a directory called .github. Oh, this just got easier. So now I can say it's workflows, and it's, this might be a path thing now. Let's try this. I'm not sure this will work. Yeah. I'm not sure this will work either, but I think it will. No. So there's a way to fix that. I'm not going to do it right now. It involves this thing called path. Oh, I did. Thank you. So now I don't know if this works or not. Nope. What if there we go. So that does work. Excellent. I didn't know that. So you can find all of these. Well, what if you want to know something about these files, right? What if you want to see them like a directory listing? Well, with find, you can do that. It has this command, and you can find syntax takes some getting used to, let's say that. So you can add a subcommand or the next option to say, whatever returned true up until now. This is a lot like PowerShell. I didn't tell it what to do with what it found, so it just showed me the names. Okay, but now I'm going to say, no, what I want you to do is show me LSAL for those, and here's the placeholder for where the name goes. And oddly, I have to terminate the command so that if I was going to continue with another option, it would know that the command was over. Okay, but if I do it like this, it's going to think the find command is over, right? The shell's going to say, oh, we're done with find. So I have to escape this so that it knows it's part of the that it's part of the exec clause and not terminating the find command. That takes a little getting used to. Nobody explained that to me. It took me the longest time to understand, why do I have to do this? And so if you do that, you get out the direct, what's in these folders. Okay, now I can see all my workflow files, right?
You could actually use little thing from all the form to hide the dot.
Yeah, yep. And I think if I just leave the A off, don't I get the same thing? I don't know why I don't want the A, I don't want the dots, that's for sure. Yeah. And I've also got this stuff, right? In fact, if I didn't want the wide setting, I could get rid of this. Whoops. LS-AL. Then I just get the names. That's not very fun. So yeah, anyway, you do this. And now you're back to yeah, whatever so you can massage it a little. If you wanted to get rid of the lines that say total, for some reason, now I can pipe it to grep, and do something with the syntax. Like I don't like the lines that say total. So I can get rid of them by using grep-v, which says I want everything that doesn't match this. And caret means the beginning of the line. I don't want things that say total at the beginning of the line with at least one digit in that position. And now I'll, hey.
Yeah.
It worked, and now it won't work.
Oh, actually, in this, why won't this work? Because I did it wrong. Let's make this simpler and see if it's, there we go. So I typed the regex wrong. Now I don't know where they are, but I could continue. I could somehow get the complete file name over here, have it print whatever. But yeah, there might be with LS. I think you can customize what comes out as output. But the idea with LS is that you don't want to rely on the -A to look exactly the same across platforms or across shells, as I understand it. So anyway, there's LS and there's find. LS is, what you want to use, when you're just, at the console doing ad hoc work, right? Finding files based on their content, find and grep. I use grep all the time. I mentioned last week that I have a favorite set of grep arguments for this. I was back to WSL, wasn't I? And the reason for that is it spells the name of a river, so I can remember it easily. And it's also a very good set of commands. And so if I want to find the string on, which is going to be pretty much in every one of those workflow folders, I can say grep, and then I can spell the name of the Rhine River and capitalize it like that. And R means recursive. Hey, R means recursive. I means it's case insensitive. N means show the line numbers. Big E means I might want to use an extended regex. And the H is useful also. And so I'll say, I want to find this on phrase. If I do that, it goes, well, that's a lot. Okay, so we're gonna change this. I'm gonna say it has to be at the beginning of the line. There we go. And
Yeah.
most of them are workflows, some of them are not. And so, like this database is Fortinet. I want to get rid of that. I notice it has a capital O. So now I'm going to change my favorite thing, and I'm going to get rid of the case insensitive part. And now pretty much I'm just hitting on workflow files. And I'm getting mostly useless results, but
because if that's checking, that we're just checking each line number. The contents of each file, is just the name.
right. And that's what grep does. Grep looks at content, or it looks at whatever. It looks by default, it looks at content of files. Yep. And that's why with font, yeah. So you can find files and then run each one through grep also. So you could say
Each document. And instead of LSing it, you could instead just look for a specific text in each of those.
right. So just like this, I could say grep. And here I'll just say -E because I've already got the file, right? And I beginning of the line, lowercase I. And we should get something. What did I forget? The placeholder for the file and terminating the command. And oh, and I said only find directories, right?
Yeah.
So whole file, and I'll say dot. I don't know if the A is going to be there in the .em. We'll try that. Oh, and I didn't tell it to give me the name of the file. So that's part of the, maybe that's why I need let's try that. There we go. So then I get the same results, right?
Except which one did which?
Which what did who? The parameters?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's that mysterious H for, right?
Yeah.
I don't need the R because I shouldn't need the R because find is just handing me the file name, so I don't need to recurse anything. N is doing the line numbers, so if I right there is a line number, line 3. Yeah, so it's telling me the file name and so H must be the file name. Oh, well, this is big H. Is that when I got rid of big H, it got rid of the file name.
Back on.
It's just bash with file name. That's what this says. Did you look up grep or find? This is grep's big H. Yeah. So grep big H is with file name. It gets a little confusing because I'm inside a find command, but inside the find command, I'm running grep.
Case insensitive, line number, and then don't remember what the E is.
Extended, allow me to use extended regex because there's simpler regex, and the only regex I know is the fancy one. So anyway, where are we? 10:46. So we go back here real quick, wrong one. So I've got some basics here. Find file content, finding files based on the content type, like I probably meant find. I'm not sure. Oh, no, file. That's what file is a command you can run, and I'll just kind of speed up a little bit here. If I say file on all of these, it'll tell you what everything is. And the nice thing about this is that even if I said that tld.text, thank you. Even if I say this is a ping, like we get this a lot at competition, we get a JPEG that's actually got that shell in it, right? it'll still say that ping is ASCII text because it's not looking at the file extension, it's looking at the content. It has a list, it has this file of magic signatures or something. Yeah. You got editors, Nano for the world, Vim for the wizards, Emacs for the impossibly old curmudgeon-y wizards. I used to use Emacs. It did not last long.
Right, so Chris,
Yes.
Chris, is there a way to possibly check to see like if the file content doesn't match what the extension says? Kind of like if you go into file.png and it actually contains ASCII text, tell me about that.
It's called a.
Oh, yeah. I started to look at that.
Well,
Like,
I mean, you can probably learn for that.
yeah, you'd have to like look at, yeah, exactly.
Well, no, you buy. They also get. Okay, to be fair, I don't know how complex that is, but you get the.
You need a map of like PNG is should the output from running file on an image should return image data. However, instead it returns this. When I run it on a .java file, it should contain text, but instead it returns image data. Whatever. I would need a map of .java outputs, .yaml, everything.
Yeah, if we could find the magic file, it's there someplace. And I think that some file types can return multiple, they can return different output depending on details about it. Like ASCII file can return like ASCII file with very long lines, I think it's one of them, or ASCII file with Windows, with CRLF or with Windows hard returns or end of lines. But once you had all the combinations, you could write like a easy way to do it so you wouldn't have to recompile. You could write a Java thing and recompile when you needed to if you had found new ones. Or you could write it seems very Pythonic to me, put it all in a hash table or something, or in a list. Wait, it's Python, it's a list of some kind. And and then just riff through what you're looking at, take the output of file and compare. Oh, and you have to strip the extension off the file, but that's not going to be that hard. I think there might be a shell extension or a shell expansion. One of the expansions that like variable expansion, arithmetic expansion that let us do 9 + 3 and get 12 out. One of those expansions might be able to let you substring out the extension of the file. And then you just compare them. But yeah, getting the mapping between the extensions and what they're supposed to return would be the hard part.
Yeah.
So do that and then everything else be easy. So and they might, I'm sure that there's a magic file sitting in the OS someplace. I don't.
Okay.
Maybe unless they compiled it to make it hack safe, but I doubt it because they actually let you supply your own magic file. And so the hack would be for somebody to put an alias in Etsy/profile that made file reference their own magic file. So they're still pretty vulnerable to that, to somebody like making a magic file that lied and said, oh, if it's got C99 shell in it, that's a PNG, Yeah. So anyway, that's it for today. I will, like I said, I'll mash up the notes. I'll try to come up with a scavenger hunt. I know we didn't do a lot of hands-on, but I think the tour of proc and dev is, just to make the point that files everywhere, and that's why the shell is what it is. So
I'm making the assumption that we are not meeting next.
oh yeah, I was going to ask about that. I usually leave that up to the team. So 2 days after Thanksgiving next week, right? Okay.
Who's expected? Okay. Yes.
You say your mother?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. Congratulations. Real.
Just got one more there. Put me out there.
I can't.
Just got one more. Top one.
There it is.
How many of your siblings are in college?